Mic. Camera. Action.
But you know what they say, fortune smiles at some and laughs at some others. What happens? Neighbors start coming out of the woodwork. They ask for small loans. A woman shows up at his door claiming to be his mistress. She wants her cut. That didn't sit too well with his wife. Someone threatens to kidnap his teenage son. It turns out the son cooked up the plot himself. And then there was this business with the mother-in-law. Somewhere along the line, he had asked the old lady to pray for his good fortune. So wouldn't you know, she claims he won that money on account of some candles she lit. So she figures she's entitled to half of it. Decides to take him to court. By this time, what with most of his assets tied up in litigation, not to mention all the shakedowns and bad loans, he's flat broke. Next thing you know, he comes crawling back to the office. He wants his old job back. He wants any job back. He wants his old life back. So now you tell me, if his happiness wasn't a curse, then what was it?
Now, look, there's one fundamental difference between your friend and myself. See, he seems like he tried to take a shortcut. I earned it. I worked hard, I put in the hours, I went to court, I fought well, and I won.
Maybe you just got lucky this once.
I don't believe in luck. Luck is a lazy man's excuse.
Spoken like a guy that's had nothing but good luck. Let me guess, prep school, yacht club, trips to Europe in the summer, that sound about right?
Lots of silver spoons. Tell you what, my friend, it's been nice talking to you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna slip back to the booth with my friends and do a little celebrating. Could you get him another one on me, please, Patrick?
All right. Welcome back to Filmography, the show dedicated to watching every credited film from an actor's complete back catalogue, from past debut through to present day, in chronological order. Each episode, I'm joined by an esteemed guest to watch and discuss the next entry from their focused filmography, and consider how it ranks amidst their career, and whether we can trace any typecasting trends or topic traits or theatrical tics. Today's returning guest is Superdummy Paul. Today's film is Jill Sprecher's 13 Conversations About One Thing from 2001. We watch, you listen, and hopefully watch along too. Good evening, sir. Still Superdummy in name, but, you know, the reviews I got, the feedback I got after contact is very much, you know, super on it in nature.
Blimey. I didn't get any of those reviews. That's good to hear.
Yeah, sorry about that. Lots of positive feedback. You know, like what you brought to the show, your knowledge of the original text, and yeah, everything that you brought to that contact episode was brilliant, I thought. And so did other people.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear it, because honestly, sometimes I don't know what comes out of my mouth. So that's good to hear. No, it was very good. It was very enjoyable, so I'm glad everyone else did as well. I'm going to say everyone. I don't know. But even if you didn't, everyone potentially did.
All 13 of them.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. The 13 most important people in my life.
Oh, well, that's lovely.
And I hope all 13 of you are back for this conversation, which I will not have that much interesting to say.
Well, you definitely will, but I guess it's whether the movie itself judges up enough interesting things from us. I mean, it wants to. It wants to be interesting. Yeah. It wants to be philosophical. It wants to be grandiose in its kind of themes and what it's tackling, and we'll get into whether we think it achieves that or not. But it's a very different beast, this one, than Contact.
Yes, very, very much so, in so many ways. Yeah, it definitely wants to be like a little indie darling that people speak of in the same way that people speak of Run Lola Run and all that sort of stuff. You know, the vibe is very, we're trying to have a message here, and we're trying to do different things and make you think, and you might need to watch this a couple of times. And, you know, that seems to be the vibe that they're going for.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Not so much the big blockbuster hit, and we want to make as much money as possible, which, to be fair to them, like, all power to them. I love that. If your whole idea in life is I want to make enough money so that I can get by, but also put something out there that some people will absolutely love, and go to film festivals with my t-shirt and all this sort of stuff, then absolutely, I'm all for that. Whether or not they actually achieve that, we might get to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with everything you said. It's a very talky movie. It's people sitting around talking for the entire runtime, mostly in sort of 5, maybe 6 locations. I definitely want to talk about that as well. I mean, something about it attracted a cast, didn't it? I mean, obviously we've got our boy McConaughey, but we've got John Turturro, Alan Arkin, Clea Duvall, Amy Irvin in a small role. So Frankie Faison is in this, most famously from The Wire, but he's had a really storied career. So lots of people wanted to say these words, but whether it all quite adds up to what they hoped it would add up to for the viewer, I think is up for debate slightly.
Yeah, it would be interesting to sort of see what the pitch was like. From what I understand, the script was written 10, 15 years previously. It was all there. So did they have the script, or were they just pitched the idea and they all jumped on board? Because they weren't scraping the barrel trying to find people.
No. So she wrote it in 8 weeks in the mid to late 90s, but then as you said, it didn't get made. They went off and made a film called Clock Watchers, which I haven't seen, but sounds great. I think I might go back and watch that. It's kind of a female perspective Office Space.
Okay.
So I think that would be really interesting to hear. Obviously, knowing what the kind of secretary side of it, I suppose, and how overlooked they are, and the men wanting to have the power and run the world. And I think that'd be really quite interesting. I think so. That got made first, and then it's got put in the back burner, and then as you said, several years later, people, McConaughey's at a pretty good point of his career. Alan Arkin is always employed and always working and always doing good work. Clea Duvall's pretty big around this time. She's sort of had a couple of these teen indie movies as well. So you're right, and it's not a bargain basement cast at all. It's not quite a hot cast, but it's certainly people who are in demand, I would have thought. So they've given, they've made a conscious choice. I imagine they've taken a hefty pay cut from what their normal wages are for a movie to be in this, because this only had a $4.5 million budget.
Well, I mean, you could easily spend that on one of them. Yeah.
McConaughey having just done The Wedding Planner, which was a big hit. J-Lo was the biggest star on the planet at this point, and he's just been in a big successful movie with her. So whether it was made before or after, I'm not sure. I couldn't find that detail out. But there's certainly people are doing this for the art rather than for the commerce.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know. Maybe it was the timing of it. Maybe, who knows? Maybe the Sundance Film Festival was really in its. Everyone wants to have something in there at that time, or. But it definitely wasn't slouching when it got off the ground. I do appreciate a film that wants to do something. Yeah,
it's. I can't really think of. There's so many examples, but none are immediately springing to mind of this kind of movie. I mean, we had the '90s Linklater Kevin Smith movement, which was a kind of indie talkies, but it's not that, not quite.
No.
We had the kind of Tarantino, Paul Thomas Anderson, later 90s movement, but it's not quite that. But it's sort of doing a little bit of both of those, because it's got that fractured timeline. It's got these vignettes which all add up to something by the end.
Yeah.
It's got that idea of people talking intelligently in real world. I'm doing rabbit ears quote marks here, because real world conversations, which I'm sure we'll talk about as well. So it's sort of combining those things together. So maybe it is kind of its own thing. But but it's playing in those two wheelhouses, isn't it?
Yeah. The only I'm just going to say the only weird film that I've seen that I could sort of relate it to is a very weird film, Pi. And that's
Aronofsky,
very,
isn't it?
Yeah, that's very much very talky, but it's got like a real strong underlying something that they're reaching for. I can't think of anything that's this talky and in so few environments that isn't reaching for something massive. Like there's an underlying theme, there's things that, they're pointing at, but there isn't like we're trying to solve something or we're trying to get somewhere, or they're just living life.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything that relates to that. And it's slightly disappointing that that's the only one that I can think of.
Yeah. It's interesting that we're both sort of, there's something there in the tips of our tongues and that part of the brain we can't quite reach. I mean, I'm not a massive Woody Allen fan, really. I've seen a few of his films, and it's not all to do with who he is as a person, but it is to do with that partly. But also his type of filmmaking isn't my type of filmmaking. But it kind of, again, it's a bit like that. It kind of predates mumblecore a little bit and that movement, which is going to come a few years later. So maybe you're right. It's just living in this weird space where it's kind of a bit of all of these things and a bit of, but not quite any of these things.
Yeah.
I can see, again, we'll come back to that, sort of where we started this, before we were all saying half things that we're not quite sure quite what we're saying. But I can see it's McConaughey, he's coming off the wedding planner. Yeah, this sounds fun. I'll do this. I'll turn out for a few days and I'll say lots of stuff and I'll get to do some quite considerable like character development acting in this. I can see the draw for him, for Alan Arkin. He's kind of got the main arc, so I can see why he would do it. And he's kind of the central figure that the story revolves around. And I think if I was an actor and I fancied just having some low-key work for a little while that wasn't going to ask too much of me with, like you say, everyday sets and costumes and dialogue, it was probably quite appealing.
Yeah, I can imagine, like, this is it. Like, if I can imagine in a world where they didn't give them the script, but they just sat them down and said, this is what your character's arc is. And I can imagine for most of them, that's quite appealing. The way that you describe each character and the things that they go through and where they start, where they finish off, I imagine that in itself would be quite appealing. That would be quite a good pitch. So maybe that's sort of what got them all across the line, because I imagine if they just mailed them the script, it would be a bit, not really what I do.
Yeah. And these cultural touchstones are all movements, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Like, they're either movements in themselves or they're writer-directors who have moved and shaped kind of the industry. So perhaps they felt like this had the potential to be part of that too. Do you know what I mean? Paul P.T. Anderson, Magnolia and Boogie Nights, that they were big deals and people watching those in different ways. The way he was harkening back to 70s cinema, but moving things forward for the current times and where it might go contemporary and in the future as well. And obviously Tarantino, again, love him or loathe him, revolutionized independent cinema at the time that he was making films, and as Linklater did and as Kevin Smith did and as Mumblecore has gone on to do. So perhaps they sort of felt like this might be Jill Sprecher, written with her sister. Perhaps they thought that this might be the next kind of movement, I suppose. They felt like there might be something that could be not industry changing, but maybe kind of, spawn its own kind of independent. I don't know where that sentence finishes really, but
getting the ground on something which will be a bit of a cult movement, and it may not directly do massive things for them, but indirectly it'll put their name out there in certain circles of the people who make things happen. Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that world.
I mean, unfortunately, it didn't happen. I mean, it made 3.7 million at the box office. It's really well reviewed, though. Like, it's kind of like whatever you believe in. There's stuff like IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and industry critics, like all these. It's all well reviewed. It's just nobody has really watched it. I mean, obviously, I gather my Letterboxd reviews. This one only has 308 reviews total on Letterboxd. That is really low for a movie that's been out for over 20 years. Maybe it's got its own dedicated cult fan base. I read a very kind of overly praiseworthy review last night after watching it. Can't say I agreed particularly with how the level that they were talking about this movie, but also it clearly really spoke to them. And this is that kind of movie that probably does if you intellectually and emotionally engage with what it's doing. I can imagine this becoming quite a important movie to you as a person.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I can imagine there are a lot of film students out there who have launched a successful or not career out of their love of certain films, and I can imagine this being one of them. I imagine there are a lot of student films that look very much like this, that have taken this idea and tried to run with it in certain ways.
That's a really nice way to put it. And you mentioned Run Lola Run earlier. That idea of these kind of separate storylines tying together, that was a nice call as well, because that feels like that kind of movie, doesn't it? That's like a student movie that, yeah, absolutely. I think that's absolutely true. And also speaks a little bit to kind of the quality of the filmmaking, I think, as well. Who am I to talk? But it has a bit of a amateurish, almost kind of TV movie quality, I would say, about the choices in kind of lighting and directing, and the sets all feel kind of artificial. I don't know if you felt the same. I felt like I was watching actors perform rather than I was in a world with characters.
Yeah, it's very much blurring the line between going to the theatre and watching a film.
Yeah.
There's just some areas where, in particular, I think it's maybe not the first scene, but maybe the second. The sound is, it's very much, we've only got a couple of microphones, but we're trying to cover as much of this room as possible.
So in the bar, is that? Yeah.
Yeah. I think the bar and then the first bit in the house. There was definitely a certain moment of, is this going to be one of those films? It does improve from there, so it is slightly disappointing that it lets it down slightly at the beginning. But yeah, and just, I do imagine that most of it, like, if they needed to film a scene in a bedroom, I imagine they went to a bedroom, but it's just, they didn't have that quality of lighting and just all those little things which you think, well, surely that makes it less real. But whether or not it's because of what the camera does to it and the digitizing of everything and what that does to it, or it's just because of what our brains now expect, it's almost feels less real than it actually is.
I couldn't agree more. That theatre is absolutely right. It feels like a stage play.
Yeah.
The lighting is the big problem. I think you're absolutely right. It's really flat and it doesn't understand how to use light and shade in order to add something to the scenes. It looks kind of like that opening scene looks like it is like a offcut from a Friends episode or something. It's like, quick, get all the decorations out from Monica and Rachel's place and get these guys in. We're going to film in here quickly. Yeah. So that's not a bad thing. Do you know what I mean? But Friends was very much lit like a sitcom, shot like a sitcom, whereas this is meant to be an indie movie where it's meant to feel like these are people living in the world. And it particularly at the start, I agree. I felt like I was watching something that was artificial, and it was little moments for me as well, like in the bar by McConaughey's character. We'll get into the vignettes in a minute. He like brings the drinks over to the rest of his lawyer buddies, and it just looks like water in a glass. And that is what it is, and that is always what it is. But it didn't look like they'd made any effort to make it look like anything else. And there was a scene later when Clea Duvall's character, who's a cleaner along with her friends, and she's bringing a mop bucket out to mop the floor, and it's a clear perspex mop bucket just with clear water in it. And like, well, that's not what you mop with. You mop with like foamy stuff, and where's the suds? And so it's little moments like that felt, and it's silly to pick on those, but it kind of jarred me out a little bit because it felt like it was artificial and they'd not thought this idea through, whereas the rest of it, they wanted to be drawing you into this world of interconnected reality.
Yeah. Isn't that a song? That is a song. That's going to bug me now. Yeah, it's almost like they put all the thought into the particular areas that they wanted. And then the rest of it, they just hoped would sort of come together, which, you know, for the most part it does. But yeah, it is, as you say, it's just those little moments that where sometimes it will just bring you out of it. Yeah. You know, that important moment where he's back in his apartment and he's got the ice to his head and then he puts it in a glass. Oh, yeah. Grim. And then pours the drink into it, which is meant to be whiskey or something, but is very clearly quite orange. Yeah. It's like a really poignant moment, and it's like, okay. Yeah. You just ruined that for me. But yeah, it's they've put all the brain power into certain areas and then forgotten some of the other ones. Yeah, scripts. I mean, scripts is their skill, isn't it? I think it's their skill set. And then, so it's Jill and Karen Sprecher. I think I'm saying the name right. And then Jill's gone on directed. And I think they're screenwriters, really, and she's getting the chance to make the film. And then, you know, with a budget like that, I guess you are working with the people who are available. And perhaps they aren't the best set decorators or costumers, or because it's what... And perhaps a lot of them are sort of stepping up from TV, and this is a chance for them to work in movies. And it just has that bit of a vibe for me, a bit of a feel of... Yeah, I mean, what you know, like Inarritu is another guy who's just jumped into my head. The guy makes, you know, like Babel or like Paul Haggis's Crash, those kind of movies where it's, but they are, I mean, Crash is awful, but it is a movie. Obviously, there's two Crashes. I'm not talking about the sex after car crash ones. The one about race relations in LA, I think that's Paul Haggis. But yeah, so these kind of interconnected stories. I think what Roger Ebert calls hyperlink stories, I think he coined this phrase. Okay. So like, is the different elements are going on, but they're all hyperlinked together until eventually you find out how they... I think he coined it, or he was one of the first people, or like pushed that as a phrase. So yeah, maybe it's people stepping up, but not quite being able to reach the level that's required of them. Yeah. Yeah. But then I guess also it's the fact that we're able to see those moments. Does that sort of show why maybe it didn't go as far as we had hoped? Because there are plenty of films that have those bits in, but you ignore it because of the rest of it. Yeah. Whereas we haven't quite ignored it. It's still done something. So does that show that the rest of it didn't quite reach what we/they hoped it would? Because we weren't able to look past those issues because it's still stuck out in our minds. You know, if that scene was so poignant that I wasn't even thinking about what he's pouring in his glass, you know. But I was, and it wasn't what I expected it to be.
No, I think that's true. I think that's really insightful. There's many early filmmakers, you know, Sam Raimi, Peter Jackson. They are not the filmmakers they go on to be, but you're right. We overlook the rawness and the mistakes because of the other elements, I guess. Yeah. This wants us to be so drawn into the world that we would guess maybe forget those things. But I think we're probably singing from the same hymn sheet here, that it doesn't quite achieve in that way either. probably because of what's the phrase I'm looking for here? The kind of, you spoke about this could potentially be a theatre piece, the kind of theatrical nature of some of the events, but certainly the mannered way is the only way I can think of putting it, the mannered way in which people talk. People don't talk like this, but people don't talk like this in Tarantino movies or Kevin Smith movies, not in real life.
No.
But they create a universe, whereas I think these people that talk in this movie that nobody talks like are meant to be centered in our reality. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. It's that hint of reality, but it's not quite. It's the uncanny valley. We know what they're trying to get to, and we recognize it, but also that person has an alien face on, so we're not quite there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's created its own little pocket universe that isn't quite, and it's bleeding through, and Men in Black are about to turn up, and it's all gone horribly wrong.
And I think part of the problem is that it wants to be quotable, it wants to be soundbitey, and that starts straight away. I mean, we have this very first scene, and then we start getting like these vignettes, and they're introduced, aren't they, through aphorisms, through these kind of title cards that come up.
Yeah.
These statements. I think what they do here is interesting. Like some of these quotes aren't always directly from the vignette you're about to see. Some of them might actually be, they're all from the movie, but they might be from a different vignette.
Yeah.
But so it might be a quote spoken by him in a scene that's starring Alan Arkin, but the quote is being used for a Matthew McConaughey vignette. So I think that's quite interesting. And then it does a good job of tying everything together by the end. But sometimes these kind of like quote title card introductions already set you off as feeling like, oh, okay, this feels a little bit pretentious. This feels like it wants to be kind of literary. And it almost at times puts, for me anyway, puts my heckles up a little bit of like, oh, okay, you're doing this, but you haven't earned it yet. Yeah. I don't know if that's me being judgmental or not. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I absolutely agree. I don't know if you've seen I think it's only in the director's cut of Donnie Darko. I'm pretty sure it's not in the general release. But in between the scenes, it will show a page of this book that they give to Donnie about like this whole silly thing. But it'll be the chapter title and a few lines from what this person's written. And it leads you into this scene. And I'm sure it's only in the director's cut, so if someone's watched the film, they're probably like, what the hell are you talking about? But it leads you into it. It gives you information about what you're about to see, and then what you see builds on that. So it grounds you in, this is such a bizarre film, but we're grounding you in something so you can further understand it, and you can actually be brought into it. Whereas this is trying to bring you into what people are thinking about.
Yeah.
But it just sort of makes you go, what? Okay, all right, calm down. It's like it's trying to be, it's giving you normal conversations, but at the same time, it's trying to say what you're about to hear is like a great work of Shakespeare.
Yes, this is about something important, so pay attention. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I know Donnie Darko is a really weird comparison for this film, but only because I've seen them do it in a way that works, and this just really didn't. There are some bits where you're like, okay, yeah, fine. But as you say, other bits, like, yeah, all right.
Yeah. But doesn't Frasier used to do it? Is it Frasier used to have little title cards as well before scenes and stuff? But again, that's a sitcom. That's meant to be playful. That's meant to be. Whereas here it feels like you put that exactly right. Pay attention, because this is the important thing you need to know from this scene. Yeah, it does feel like that. It feels kind of It's in a way
life lesson.
Yeah. It's kind of talking down to you a little bit, isn't it? It's a little bit haughty, a little bit superior in its kind of sense of trying to draw you in.
Yeah.
Or maybe we're both two very defensive, easy to go people. I don't know.
Well, maybe we're too stupid for this film. Who knows?
Well, no, I don't. Not according to all your fans of Contact. No.
Well, maybe I'll start my own fan group.
Yeah, you should. See how many leave you after this. But I imagine there's more fans out there of Contact than there are 13 conversations about one thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So we discussed
I don't
before.
Think there'll be 13 conversation about this episode.
No, maybe not. But we are, aren't we? We're going to hold 13. So we discussed just before we started recording that we'll sort of almost be a bit more structured than I am normally and try and kind of think about this movie in its little mini vignettes. If we go off piste, it doesn't matter. But because they want us to consume this movie in that way, we thought it might be interesting to try and kind of consider them as kind of little mini episodes, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah. You are the brains of the operation. And therefore, you remembered to write down where all the vignettes start and stop. So, spoiler alert to everyone listening. I did not. I forgot to do that. So we're going to try and do that. One of us may succeed more than the other.
Well, I mean, the storylines cross over and intersect anyway, don't they? So I don't think we can just purely do it. But, this film is laid out with quite literally 13, not conversations, but 13 kind of scenes. Some of them do take place in one location. Some take place over several. Yeah. But, with these title cards, with these kind of key focus each time that then by the end do kind of start to, as Roger Ebert puts it, like hyperlink and intersect and are supposed to help you draw together like a deeper understanding of man, nature, the universe, our place in it.
Yes.
Whatever we think they might be trying to say.
In particular, New York and the people in New York.
Yeah, well, we'll talk. I mean, I think a nice place for us to finish off is like, what is the one thing? I think we'll build up to that. So I'm sure you've got your own thoughts, but as we're talking, let's build up to let's try and answer. What is the one thing people are talking about in this movie?
Yes. I haven't still decided on that in my head, so hopefully I'll have decided by the time we get to the end.
Good. So it starts with John Turturro's character, doesn't it? And Amy Irving. They're married.
Yes.
They are Walker and Patricia, and he is a university lecturer in physics, I think, some sort of physics professor.
Yeah, he seems to be. It's either maths or physics because he's doing some sort of combination of the two.
And he's talking about kind of, at one point, he's talking about the kind of trajectory of falling objects and all this kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Foreshadowing alert. So I'm already jumping ahead. That's much later in the movie. So we start with those two. They're in their flat, aren't they? And they're clearly not very happy.
Yeah.
And he's recently been mugged. Setting up this is, not necessarily the nice part of New York or an immigrant story, maybe because it's John Turturro. I don't know, but it's only a few minutes this opening, isn't it? This doesn't have a card that introduces it. It's kind of just straight in. Yeah. And then we get the title and the first card after it. But what did you think of their kind of opening?
Yeah, it's especially when you read the synopsis of the film, you come into this, it's slightly jarring because you don't. I suppose that was probably my fault because I came in with slight expectations of what I was about to see, which is always a mistake. But yeah, it's very straight into, these are two very normal, not very exciting people going about their life, having just the normal, not very exciting conversation. But something has happened to him/them. So yeah, they're alluding to something has happened to him. I don't think at this point we get too many details. But he's got
like a black eye, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got a big black eye, and they're talking about. I think he says something about he's dealt with it and moving on or something.
She asks him to go to the police, I think, doesn't she?
Yeah,
and he's like, "Well, there's no point," and. I think that's sort of it, really. Yeah. I guess it's a scene about like what aren't people saying to each other when they should have a lot to say.
Yeah,
it's really what the scene is, isn't it? And it will come back around, and there is an unsaid thing that is affecting their marriage at this point.
Yeah.
So again, it's one of those scenes which I guess I understand the fracture storyline here, but I'm not sure this is where I would have started.
No.
It doesn't draw you in. It's not massively interesting. It's all just kind of pastel-y, greeny. This is the Friends set.
Yeah. Very much.
I was just a bit like, oh, okay, I like these two actors, but
yeah,
at this point, I don't know if you felt any different or any more interested.
No, it's a very sort of flat. I guess it does, as you say, it sets up that there's things being unsaid, and I guess it's the setup to, you know, there are things going on that you need to be thinking about, and it's maybe trying to set you up for that idea that, you know, there are going to be conversations, but at the same time, not everything is going to be talked about. You're going to have to do some work on this one, people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess it's setting you up for dealing with the normality of things, but yeah, it's very flat.
That's the perfect word. There's no dynamic nature to it at all.
No.
The filmmaking, the acting, the dialogue, the lighting, it's flat is perfect. It's just okay, this is how you know, like they say, you know, the importance of the first line of a book, or you know, things like Netflix and streaming, the importance of like the first 10 minutes. People will turn off if they're not immediately grabbed. This is not the right movie for Netflix to be streaming, hoping it's going to grab people in the first 10 minutes, probably.
Yeah, very much not. It's if you're not prepared for an indie style movie at this point, you are probably switching off.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
I mean, maybe that's what they're aiming for. Maybe they're just saying, like, we'll cut people out straight away. If this isn't for you, just leave, because you're not going to enjoy it. Just don't bother. But yeah, even if they sort of swap this and maybe split the bar scene a bit.
Yeah.
Went from the bar to the car.
Yeah.
That might just give you a bit more.
Intercut it a bit more.
Yeah, that might just give you something to sort of walk into.
Yeah. Cool, because that's where we go next, isn't it? Perfect setup. Look at that. Look at that segue. This guy knows what he's doing. So we get our aphorism title card. We get "Show Me a Happy Man," and it's always like a black screen, isn't it, with white writing.
Yeah.
And this next scene introduces McConaughey's Troy. He's a successful lawyer. They're out celebrating having won this big case. He's a prosecuting attorney, isn't he? I was looking for the right word there. So he puts people in prison. And he's there talking. He's at the bar and he ends up talking to Alan Arkin's character, who we don't know who this is at this point. I was like, oh, Alan Arkin, that's cool. We're just going to get him as this cool guy at the bar, providing kind of wisdoms. No, he will go on to be a main player in the movie, if not their main player. And then on the way home, he is distracted by something fluttering by, and he hits somebody, and he chooses to leave the scene of the crime. And that's kind of this next segment, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. They have, so he walks in all happy. Then, as you say, our friend is at the bar, not quite so happy.
No.
Which,
he tells the story about like a co-worker who won the lottery, doesn't he? And then his life went to shit, despite the fact that he became a millionaire after winning the lottery. Yeah,
he won $2 million, stood up, quit his job there and then, but then it all went downhill from there. People started coming out asking for money, and he got sued by his mother-in-law because the mother-in-law prayed for him, so therefore she deserves to have half the money, you know. And then all his assets got seized, and he had to go begging back for his job. Real, cheerful person.
Real glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah. But it does lead you into this, happy, unhappy conversation, to use the word of the day. And Matthew, at this point, our friend, is very much the cheerful one. He's trying to bring joy and won't be brought down by this salty bar.
No.
Rapper. I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, he's not interested. He's celebrating. He wants everyone to celebrate.
Yeah, he puts on the music song on the jukebox, doesn't he? He calls out to him across the bar, like,
Yeah.
This is for you, guy. And yeah, this is very much the kind of cocksure, charismatic, like full of life McConaughey we're used to. There's a little bit of his kind of natural patter. There's a line he says, like, we're here to do a little celebrating. The way he delivers that line is very much, oh, okay. Like, I can hear it in my head now. That's the way that McConaughey talks. It has his Texan kind of sense of timing and accent and stuff. So yeah, it's very much the McConaughey we're used to here, isn't it? Until obviously the incident.
Yes. Yeah. So we drop someone off on the way home, and then we have possibly the most budget scene.
I mean, yes and no, because it's they don't have the budget to hire a stuntman.
No.
Stunt person, I should say. Because we don't see it. We see, like say, like something fluttering across the window and then screeching of the brakes and a dudunk and then somebody lying on the floor. Very deliberately saying somebody at this point because, you know, it's going to be a mystery. It's going to be revealed to us who this person is. So, yeah, I know what you mean. It sort of feels like this is probably where some of the money went. But also, it has those same problems as we've already spoken about. Kind of the lighting feels very like TV. The score starts coming at this point, which I thought was awful. This kind of plinky plonky piano score. Again, this feels very kind of TV quality. I'm going to reference something that I love. I mean, my love for Buffy knows no bounds. But this felt very much like, you know, we spoke about Friends in the flat, like the scene of him walking down the road with this plinky plonky score could have been a scene out of Buffy. I was sort of waiting for a vampire to jump out and attack McConaughey and Buffy to run around the corner and save him. It had that kind of that kind of look and feel to it, the music and the lighting and the location work. So yeah, I'm still, I don't know how you felt, so I'm talking over you a little bit here, but I'm still not bought in yet at this point.
No, I think if I hadn't, so the first bit, I wish I hadn't read the synopsis, but this bit, I'm sort of glad I did, because if I hadn't read it, it would have been a bit confusing and jarring, because the thing flutters across. It's screech flump.
Yeah,
he's got a bloodied head.
Yes,
and then you see the expression on his face, but because of the way it's filmed, at this point, all you really know for sure is that something white has fluttered across his windscreen and he's slammed on the brakes. Like, has he crashed? Like, we don't really know what's happened, and then it takes a minute from there for him to get out and then show that there is someone on the floor. And then he stands up, walks away. She's definitely breathing. Just putting it out there. Like, I'm sorry. I know, like, I love my murder mysteries, but there's nothing more annoying than when you're watching a murder mystery and you point and say, that person's breathing. Just had to put that out there. They're very much relying on the natural lighting of New York.
Okay, so yeah.
It's in like one of these, it's not quite an alleyway, but it's sort of the alleyway between two streets in New York that most people don't drive down. But the two streets have, I think there's an Arby's at the far end. With the big neon lights, and it's very much relying on all of that. And the streets are busy, but this particular, the alley is really quiet. It seems to be very much relying on the natural environment. And it just doesn't. That score. The score can be forgettable. Please, I don't want it. It just.
It's one of those scores. Sorry, it's one of those scores that always they're like. That he probably has about 10 minutes, 20 minutes max of material written, and it's stretched out across the whole like 90 minutes. Sorry to jump in, but like that.
No, it's absolutely right.
Because it's the same thing, just keeps coming back around again and again and again.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I get that scores have themes, You know, you'll hear a particular type of tune, and you know that
or like a
one's gonna
motif
appear
or a
out of nowhere.
character, or
Yeah. But this is just, they've spent a couple of quid on the same 3 tracks, and they're going to use that couple of quid.
Yeah.
I actually know what you mean. That it's the scene that could have been so much, but there's just those crisp edges, aren't there?
Yeah.
But it's also one of the most poignant things that will run through the film.
A man of justice doing an injustice is, this is a big moment, isn't it, in his life and the person whose life he's hit, and in terms of how he views the world and how the world should work. It should feel powerful and momentous, but it's kind of a bit of a wet fart. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you see, I mean, his acting, it tells the story.
Yeah.
Which is lucky, because if you had someone else who didn't have those facial expressions, that didn't have that way of, he doesn't say anything at this point. From the point his friend gets out the car, he doesn't then say anything for the rest of the scene.
I mean, almost for the rest of the movie, to be honest.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
McConaughey's doing a lot of face acting, and I don't mean that. I agree with you, not in a disparaging way, like good face acting. Like, we know exactly how he feels. Particularly good eye acting, I think.
Oh, 100%.
In a later scene when he's interviewing the latest criminal that he's put behind bars, and he's talking about how does he feel knowing he's killed somebody and all this kind of stuff. Like, the eye acting there is really, really strong.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. He's pretty dialogue free in this movie, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like, you just see it in his face. Like, you know something's gone badly wrong. You know, he's been hit over the face with a white sheet, but his face says there's more going on. And then he sees the person laying there, and his face says, I've killed someone. And then you can see the thing going through his head. What do I do? Like, how can I deal with this situation? And then just this, it's almost like the slow getting in the car. He's still considering it in his head. He's still trying to decide in his head what to do, but his body is just saying, we're leaving now. Even seems to be before he's realised that's what he's doing. But yeah, if it wasn't for him and his face, I think that scene would really fall flat, unfortunately, because it is a really important scene. Yeah.
He's not the only main character to appear in this scene, is he? But we'll get there.
No.
We then get the title card, You Look So Serious. And then this is John Turturro's Walker, and this is when we learn that he's having an affair with a work colleague. We then see him at a lecture where he very subtly on a blackboard in massive writing in capitals writes the word irreversible. I'm not sure I really got the link between this previous scene and this one, but I think that word helped. And we also get a Rob McElhenney of It's Always Sunny and now co-owner of Wrexham cameo, don't we, as one of the students, as a mouthy kind of distracted, disinterested student.
Yeah.
What did you think of this segment?
I mean, my main takeaway from that segment was Rob McElhenney apparently hasn't aged in 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, he has grown bigger, but somehow looks the exact same. So answers on the postcard for that one. I think... so I think we begin to learn something about the character. And his interaction with the student tells us something about who he is and how he approaches things. But it does just seem to be they needed another excuse to put a big word on the board. Because otherwise we don't get a lot from this.
No, the point we during the lecture is kind of, it's like in media res, isn't it? It's like partway through the lecture. And then he's sort of asking a question and he's not getting the answer he wants from Rob McElhenney's student character. And So yeah, he rubs it all out, doesn't it? Right, it's irreversible on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, he feels like a teacher who's a lecturer who has maybe fallen out of love with what he's doing. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, he's in it because he loves the subject, but he doesn't love teaching.
Yeah.
You know, we've all had those teachers before where...
Wow, you know, yeah, I've taught those lessons before. But, you know,
But I'm sure you've at least tried to teach.
Yeah, sure. Walker's not a great character, and maybe, you know, this might be a point to talk about as we sort of meet everybody, how we feel about them. I'm not sure there's anybody that's necessarily particularly likable in this, which is okay. You can do that, but I'm not sure where our allegiances are supposed to lie. But I did sort of have some sympathy with him because it can be exhausting doing that job. You know, that's when I'm not doing this fun thing with my friends in the evening. That's how I pay my bills. So yeah, I've met that student a lot of times, and I sort of had a bit of sympathy, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Oh, I did have sympathy, but I also just, it gives that impression that he's, I guess maybe it's coloured by what we've already seen from him. It has to be. I think it's in this bit. Yeah, it is. It's possibly my favourite line of the whole thing. Of he wants to get out of the dullness of routine, and he's so happy that his life has changed with this woman. And then it was, so I'll see you on Thursday at the same time. It's my favourite bit, but it does like that. I think that gives away his character. His idea of coming out of the dullness of routine is doing the exact same thing, but maybe on a different day, but at the same time. But ideally, probably on the same day. So he loves the one student who gives the answers the way that he wants them, so that he can move his lesson along. But if anyone interrupts that flow, then he's not interested anymore. But I know, obviously, as you say, like, you do want to give Rob a bit of a slap at that point. So it's maybe played a bit further than that, but, or maybe I'm just giving him too much credit there.
He's definitely trying to derail for sure. Yeah. But, you know, as a teacher, you've got to have some tact. And that was pretty tactless, the way he dealt with it. But I think you're right, because we've seen him engaging in this extramarital affair, because we sort of have this hint that perhaps he's either moved out or he's moving out because he's now got this one-bedroom apartment. Yeah. But this other woman has not told her partner that they're together. So, you know, we're starting off in a bad place with him as who he is as a person. So it is hard to have sympathy for him and to be on his side.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, he makes a comment, or she makes a comment about, you know, moving in there, or... so it's also very confusing for the timeline at this point. And that will only continue. But yeah, we've seen him in the house with the wife, and then now in this place, and yeah, she's talking about her other life, so she's still attached to that other life, but he's seems to be wanting to move on, but also wanting things to stay the same, and he's a very conflicted, very confusing, and not particularly likable character by the end of this scene.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. And then we get our next card, don't we? We get ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
And this is where we meet Clea DeVal's Beatrice, who is a cleaner. It looks like for kind of well-to-do people. She's working with her friends called Dory, I think. Yeah, Dory, played by Tia Texada. Not an actress I know, but I think she's gone on to have quite a successful career in TV and stuff. She's got a really good presence, actually. I like that kind of... She's got that Bronxy accent that sounds really nice to the ear. Really nice cadence about her. And these two work together, but essentially Beatrice does all the work whilst Dory sits around reading magazines. And I think this is quite an autobiographical character. Having read up about it, this is kind of the segment which speaks the most to the writers, particularly to the director as well, to Jill, because she had a couple of incidents where I think she was mugged herself and she got a couple of head injuries, which inspired like kind of some of the plot lines in this, because it turns out that Beatrice is the character that McConaughey's Troy hits with his car.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
It all starts to make sense.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. You very much get the idea that she's taking things seriously.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to do this. She's got this job. She's quite a nice person, but her colleague / friend is very clearly taking advantage of her, the situation, the people, everything, and just wants life her way, really. And then we find out, the Chekhov's T-shirt.
Yes, yeah.
It's actually the client's T-shirt.
Yeah, he's an architect, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, where she sees that it's got a hole in it, she offers to repair it, and that's what she's carrying, and the wind suddenly blows up and flutters off in front, which is what causes the accident. It very much sets up those two characters, and then immediately breaks your heart.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, this, like I said, I think this is the autobiographical character. She's the only one who gets any kind of backstory. We get this exposition of like she had a childhood near drowning incident, and in that moment she kind of saw this figure, and it helped her to decide that she wanted to live. And we see her she is a literal choir girl. Do you know what I mean? Like, it couldn't be any more heavy-handed.
Yeah.
With it's kind of, it's not even symbolism. I don't know what to call it. It's like in your face. This girl is good. She doesn't deserve what's about to happen to her. She's, I think absolutely we should like her, and she is a good person. But I don't feel like she's a real person. So I guess I'm not quite bought in.
Yeah. Yeah, she is. Yeah, you're right. She is kind of just a walking metaphor.
Yes,
really.
That's a nice way to put it. Yeah.
Like she's really happy, despite the fact that, she literally services other people. I mean, no, that's the wrong phrase to use. She is a cleaner. She looks after other people's houses. She goes and works for other people. She does the job that no one really wants to do. She offers to do more work for them. Her friend is taking advantage of her, really. But she sort of shrugs it off. She's really smiley and nice. She's in the choir. She's had all sorts of horrible things happen to her. I think she alludes to the fact that something happened to her parents.
To her dad, isn't it? I think, she lost her dad when she was younger.
Yeah.
She's got this doll who looks like it's winking because it was a toy she got and then it got damaged. And
yeah.
Like
everything has happened to her, yet she is the nicest person literally on this planet.
Yeah.
And then she gets run over.
She's sort of the inverse, isn't she, of Jean, of Alan Arkin's Jean, I suppose. Yeah. In kind of, young female, he's older and male, but she's very much a positive side of life. He's very much a negative side of life character.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. And I guess that's what they're setting up here. We've seen Jean be the doom and gloom. Matthew, he's a doom. Jean's the doom and gloom. She's the cheery best person in the world. I guess he's sort of in the middle. He's the cheery one, but not necessarily the best person in the world, but maybe he's just the everyman who's, he's worked hard, but maybe not that hard because there's some allusion to the fact that he may have had some stuff handed to him.
Yeah.
But, he's a district attorney and he's doing some good work, but maybe he's sort of the in-betweeny person. Or maybe I'm just reading too much into this.
No. I think it's all fair to say.
Yeah. And she, sets it up, runs it down.
Yeah, I mean, up until this point, so what is this? This is kind of 4 key vignettes, isn't it? With the mini one at the start. It's quite a significant portion of the movie, I would say. We're probably coming up to 50 minutes of the movie. Maybe I haven't got timings, but these ones are all quite long, aren't they? To kind of introduce the characters and get through quite a lot. And this reveal now that Beatrice is the girl that has been hit with the car. I mean, I know what you're saying in terms of the acting performance and her breathing in the McConaughey Troy one. I don't know whether that's meant to be on purpose, whether that's poor direction or poor acting or what, because, spoiler alert, she's not dead. But they leave this vignette with us, quote unquote, not knowing, don't they?
Yeah.
Both the McConaughey one and this one, she's been hit, and we are left unclear about whether she's survived this or whether she is truly dead.
Yeah. Yeah. At this point, as far as we know, that's the last we're going to see of her unless we go back, which is entirely possible.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think from this to the next time we see her.
It's quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. So I think they are trying to leave us with this sudden, very happy to very sad.
Yeah.
And maybe they're trying to set that up.
Yeah, we've got 4 vignettes now before she comes back. So we've got quite a few.
Yeah. So, maybe they're trying to say to us, maybe Jean had a point.
Yeah.
Happy, sad.
And Jean's who we come to next. We get, I once knew a happy man, his happiness was a curse. And in this segment, we find out about, Gene and his, he works in like an insurance company. He's the boss. He is a dick. I would hate to work for him. He's got marital problems. His son's a drug addict. He's having to bail his son out, I think, for at least the second time. Cost him like $1,500, I think, and his son's not interested. Yeah. And the kind of crux of this storyline, though, really is that he hates somebody that he works with called Wade. They call him Smiler because he's always happy and he's always got like a positive spin on things. And he's got a happy marriage and all this kind of stuff. So he ultimately ends up firing this guy just because he can't stand having him in the office. So this was, I mean, we spoke about Office Space earlier about how Jill Sprecher's earlier movie is kind of like the female spin on Office Space, but this segment feels like it's kind of playing in that kind of same arena with like kind of a douchey boss and the people working under him. But it's more from the Gary Cole, character's perspective here, because again, like Gene is not a likable guy at all. Like I can't think of any single redeeming feature.
No. I mean, he does bail his son out, I suppose.
Sure. Yeah.
But I guess, he seems to earn a decent amount of money, so that's probably the least you could expect of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is basically it. He doesn't like Wade because Wade is happy.
Yeah.
And he is trying to make him unhappy, and he doesn't understand it.
To the point, like taking bets with his colleagues of like, when I fire him, that's going to be the thing that finally breaks him. Like, that is just so cruel.
Yeah, because the boss brings him up and just says that they need to make some cutbacks. Mm-hmm. Doesn't say anything specific about how much or people or anything like that.
Yeah, so like Gene's direct kind of line manager, whatever, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And then he goes back and apparently he spent all afternoon crunching the numbers, and comes to the decision that they have to let someone go. And it just so happens that Wade was the last one to join 2 years ago, I think he said. So therefore he has to be the one to go. And then, he brings the other guy in, the colleague. Yeah. And then, as you say, makes a bet and says, I bet you $10 this will wipe the smile off his face. That's it. Yeah. It was full of spite on his face.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. But even that can't bring Wade down, can it? Because he kind of just says, "Oh, well, this is the time off that me and my wife have been talking about. We'll take that trip." And he's the definite counterpoint to Gene, isn't he? This kind of like,
oh yeah,
letting life grind you down and becoming a negative person, only put negativity out in the world is who Gene is.
Yeah.
Whereas Wade is trying to turn every challenge or every negative into a positive. And again, I'm not always the person that's good at doing that. And I can kind of see if I had to work with that person, it might be grating at times.
Yeah.
I can understand that perspective, but not to the extent of which Gene's character is being portrayed here.
No. And like the way that they portray Wade, he's turning things into a positive, but not quite to that person that we all know that we want to punch in the face.
No. Yeah.
Like, it's not in a obnoxious, in-your-face way. It's just like he's enjoying life. He doesn't expect you to be happy. He's not walking up to you and saying, "Why aren't you smiling?"
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
What's with the long face? But he's just enjoying his own life.
He reminds me a bit of something like Boyle out of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh, yeah.
Just because he's that kind of constant bundle of energy and of joy.
Yeah.
That you've either got to choose to get on with or to give a wide berth to. But Wade is inherently a good person.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, he is probably the only actual likable person in here, and he's not one of the main characters.
Yeah, not an actor I know of. Most of these people in this office are all people I'm unfamiliar with. Just it's Frankie Faison, who's like Gene's kind of best friend in the office.
Uh-huh.
So he's the guy who famously was in The Wire. He's familiar to me, but there's a lot of kind of day players here, isn't there? Or people who are kind of just above, probably just got their SAG card and they're in on the cheap. But Wade is very good at fulfilling that character for sure. The actor playing Wade is very good at fulfilling that character. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then we really see Gene for who he is, and it does really build his sort of character. Fleshes out his character. And we get an idea of the type of person that he is, and I mean, we see some of the stuff that he's also going through. Yeah. But doesn't forgive him being such a grouchy little shite.
No, absolutely not. And again, the what is it? The message here, the subtext, that's the word I'm searching for, is not subtle. As Tony is fond in saying, our friend Tony Freena, the subtext is text here. Do you know what I mean? Don't be this guy. Don't let life. Do you know what I mean? It's not. There's very little that's subtle about this movie, to be honest.
No, I mean literally the subtext is text.
Yes,
they took Tony's word and literally said, "We are going to put the subtext in between each scene."
Yeah, made it to actual text on the screen for sure. And again, in hindsight, I can kind of see why they make Gene so unlikable here. There will be a turn. There'll be a face turn later, and that works well. But at this point in the movie, we're now coming up to maybe an hour in the movie. We've only got sort of half an hour left. It's not a long movie, by any stretch of imagination. An hour and 44 minutes. So we've got 40-ish minutes of the movie left, not including credits. And we've met all the main players now. And you're struggling for who you're kind of holding on to is going to be the character that's going to see you through the rest of this, because the only person we really thought might be decent and is a main character is potentially dead.
Yeah, you don't really know who you're meant to be following. Yeah. You don't know where the actual... I mean, is there a storyline? We can argue about that later, but, if there is one, you don't know where it is. You're a good chunk through and you've no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I'm really noticing, am I rooting for the murderer? Am I rooting for the adulterer? Or am I rooting for I don't know what the right word would be, but, this grouch that's sacking people because he doesn't agree with their worldview. It's quite hard at this point, isn't it, to know who you want to root for and know what the next segment of the story is going to be and how it's going to pull you through.
Yeah.
And what they go for is fuck guilt. And this is really short, isn't it? It's like a few minutes long. This is McConaughey's Troy, and he's choosing to sell his car, which he's kept under like one of these car covers since the accident. I assume he's got it cleaned up or whatever. You think there'd be a significant dent or something in it, but maybe we just don't see that. There are quite considerable time jumps at points between these vignettes, aren't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it turns out that he's selling it to John Turturro's character, Walker, because he doesn't drive anymore, is what he says. But obviously he's trying to get rid of this kind of evidence tying him to the hit and run.
Yeah. Yeah, because we get a little bit of a scene, don't we, with him in the office. Mm-hmm. And then we can see he's still not quite right. You know, he's very distracted, still not saying a lot. His friend who we gave a ride to sort of says they can have a conversation, and if he doesn't mind, give him a ride back. And he says, "Oh, I'm not driving.
Yeah,
I didn't drive today." And then we cut to him selling the car. We have a little drive along, which I was slightly confused about. I guess he's doing a test drive.
But
and he just says, "Why are you selling?" "Oh, because I don't drive anymore." They have a bit of a conversation, which doesn't seem to lead anywhere.
Yeah, it's hinted again about the mugging, isn't it? Which starts to put into question time frames for us. This is the first hint that perhaps these stories aren't playing out in a linear fashion.
Yeah.
Because we're back to where we were at the start of the movie. And I don't know about you. I don't know, from my reading, I don't know if this is true, but I got the hint at this point that perhaps it was Gene's son that mugged Walker.
Yeah.
I
considered that as well.
Yeah.
Because we'd been introduced to the idea that his son had done something. Mm-hmm. But I don't think at that point we really had a full idea of what he'd done.
I think it's offhand mentioned about it was like not armed robbery, whatever the step down from that is, like the
armless robbery,
like mugging with violent intent or whatever. I don't know. Like I think it's just sort of very briefly mentioned when he's at the courthouse bailing him out. Because the guy's saying like he's got his bail, but he's got to turn up to the court hearing because this is not the first time and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah. No, I thought the exact same. I thought that maybe they were connected somehow, even if it wasn't directly the person that did it, or he was connected to it, or you're starting to, as you say, because we're so long into it, you're starting to try and find the pieces to put together now, especially because these two characters have now met.
Yeah.
You're getting the idea that we're trying to get the interlocking pieces, but they're just not fitting properly, which I don't know is helping or confusing.
Well, particularly because there's not really any callback to this. It doesn't matter that it's Walker that's buying the car.
Yeah.
There's no mention of it again. Their stories don't cross paths again. There's no kind of need really for it to be Walker that's selling his car to.
No, I thought this was going to lead into some sort of thing where he gets questioned by the police because someone saw the car, and then this is how the affair gets found out because that's where he was at the time, or no, nothing like that.
Yeah. So it feels a bit forced, really. This scene between them, doesn't it?
Yeah. They just needed another chalkboard for him to write on. Yeah. And apparently they'd already used the chalkboard.
Yeah. And then we move quite swiftly into the next one, which is called Ask Yourself If You're Happy. And this is Amy Irving's Patricia, which is the, I guess, soon-to-be ex-wife of Walker. And it's her moving out of the apartment. But to begin with, we have this, again, very forced kind of conversation with a neighbour. She hears a noise and goes to check it out and then invites the neighbour in. That's when we learn she's moving out. We have this kind of very sort of pontificating, philosophical, pretentious conversation where she's throwing out lines like, we're in a city full of people, but we're trying to avoid contact with each other, and we live our lives wanting 18 inches away from each other, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which you just wouldn't say to a stranger.
No.
What do you think of this scene?
Yeah, this seems to be, because I've got a note here that I can't remember, it's the beginning of this bit or the end of the last bit, we see the guy's son steals someone's bag and then shoots up in the corner and is.
I think you're right. It's at the end of the last one, isn't it? Yeah, there's a drug addict. Yeah.
It feels like that may as well have been attached to this one because it just feels like this one is like lots of little pieces that they felt needed to be in there somewhere. We find out that she definitely knows about the affair, and we find out why she knows. Everyone needs 18 inches of personal space. Well, I might need a bit more than that, but okay. And then she's moving out, and there's a few of his things there, and she says to just throw them in the recycling or something. So it's almost like this is just there to, if you didn't pick up on the little things before, then we're just going to make it a bit clearer.
Yeah.
This is the situation. This is what these people know. We're clearing up these storylines in a weird way. Yes, I don't know. I don't know about you, but it just felt slightly unnecessary.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's interesting because this actress and this character is in it right at the start and right at the end, and then she has this weird bit in the middle. Yeah. I think she almost would have been better served by just bookending the movie.
Yeah.
By being the character who's in it at the start and in it at the end. And then, the end, I think it works quite well. I think there's a couple of moments there that work quite well. This doesn't add anything. It's just, as you said, it's just a little bit of exposition. But actually, I didn't need to know. I didn't need to know the backstory of his wallet and how she found out about the affair, and it all of that's been revealed to us already through the other vignettes and the other conversations people have had.
Yeah,
I just want to give this actress more to do, which I get because she's great. But for the story, it's superfluous, really.
Yeah, and they introduced like a couple of side characters that don't really need to be there. As you say, we have the neighbour, they have the conversation. We get the moving people, they have a little conversation.
Yeah.
None of it really seems to go anywhere. And, for a movie that's probably trying to not spend too much money in random places, this is probably a random place they didn't need to spend any money.
But again, if like Walker had turned up, he'd driven to the apartment because where he's moved to is really far away. So he now needs a car to drive to the apartment.
Yeah. And
when he gets to the apartment, we sort of get this in later, but then he gets to the apartment and he sees all his stuff's outside.
Yeah.
Like that's the scene that would make this feel necessary, but none of that happens. I'm sure there's a myriad of other ways, but it just kind of amounts to nothing really, doesn't it? Unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't really add anything, doesn't go anywhere, it leaves you a little bit, like you say, like wondering what could have been.
Yeah. And then we're back with Gene. We're back with Arkin's Gene, and this segment's called Fortune Smiles at Some and Laughs at Others. And this is when we're starting to see him, a bit of humanity come in. He's starting to feel a bit of guilt. He bumps into Wade at a diner and tries to avoid him because he's feeling guilty about what he's done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's doubling down on kind of his treatment of other people at the office. He's really rude. What's the character's name? It's escaping me. He's the guy. It's the character who wins the lottery that he's referring to from earlier in the movie. Actually, is obviously later in the movie. To Mickey. So Mickey is really rude to him in the kind of dining section of the office because Mickey's talking about Wade and what's going with him, and he's heard this rumor about perhaps somebody else was getting the VP job that Gene wanted, and he just turns into a complete dick. He just starts shouting at him and being rude to him and talking to go back to your desk and get on with some work rather than just gossiping and all this stuff. And it's always about him it's his negative feelings inside that he's externalizing and taking out on everyone around him.
Yeah. He has a call with his ex-wife, says that they have a little bicker about the son.
Yeah. And the I don't know what these things are called, but when you go to find out if it's going to trial or if he's going straight to prison. All that stuff is coming up, isn't it?
Pre-court hearing, or probably not the term or whatever. And then it's alluded to that whether it's her new partner or someone they know he could get a job with them, but he, aggressively says, well, I'm about to be made vice president. And then, we get the conversation where Mickey says, oh, have you heard about the new vice president coming in? And he suddenly starts to realise all his hopes and dreams are falling apart in front of him. Everyone's missing Wade because he was a bit annoying, but he cheered up the office, and he's everything.
But without Wade, there's nothing to counterbalance Gene, is there? That's the thing.
Exactly. Yeah. He's snapping at everyone. Mickey was whistling, and how dare you do that? How dare you distract me with your whistling? Everything around him seems to be falling apart, and it's only kind of, it's not himself to blame for everything, but he seems to be certainly not helping himself.
It's very much a karmic thing, isn't it? I think it's, he's putting negativity out into the world, so negative things are coming back to him, whereas Mickey is a more positive person. He's trying to be positive. I mean, I hate the scene when he wins the lottery. I don't know why he's checking his lottery ticket in the middle of the day at work. That's not, I don't know how it works in New York at this point, but I don't think that's when they reveal the lottery at like 12:30 on a Wednesday afternoon. But yeah, that's what this segment felt to me, that kind of karmic sense of you get what you put out.
Yeah. Yeah, very much. Yeah, it's we sort of get some of the payoff for some of the things that, Gene was saying right at the very beginning in the bar. The routine and everything, the routine that doesn't make any sense at all. Apparently he goes and gets his hair cut every week. Right, okay. Especially in New York prices.
Yeah, sure.
Sensible.
Especially not of that little amount of hair.
No, exactly, yeah. Snip, done. We're getting some payoff.
Yeah.
We're also getting a few more insights, but nothing major. It's a scene that I like some of it. Other bits, again, they seem a little bit excessive. The bits with Wade I quite liked.
Yeah.
I think that builds more into the story than the rest of it. Wade's going into the city every day. He's still dressed up. They don't think he's told his wife that he's lost his job.
Yeah.
He's just sitting in a diner. And as you say, he bumps into Wade in there. Yeah. Is
it this segment as well? It must be this segment as well, because we're getting towards, the kind of the finish, aren't we? That he chooses to go and see. I think this is quite a long segment, isn't it? Which is why Gene ends up feeling kind of like the main character. His segments are always quite chunky. He goes to see, you're right, it's his ex-wife's new husband, isn't it? Who runs a company. Then he goes to see him and asks him to give Wade a job, doesn't he?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's this one or the next one. I can't quite get it straight in my head.
Because he doesn't have like another chunky segment by himself left anymore. So whether it's part of somebody else's, it might be that it's part of somebody else's. Because they do start blending and blurring as the movie goes on.
Yeah, I think it's possibly...
Because that's his big turn, isn't it? It looks like he's going to go and see this husband ask for a job because he's getting concerned about his own position at their company, and he got passed over for the VP job. Of course you did. You're a complete dick. Nobody wants to work with you.
No one likes you.
No. But he's gone there and actually asked him to give Wade a job, and he doesn't even want the credit. He just wants Wade to have a secure future and to be able to provide and...
Yeah, probably get rid of his own guilt.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Make himself feel better about himself, but... Yeah, hopefully do a good thing along the way. Speak to someone. And he has to speak to someone he doesn't want to speak to do it.
Yeah.
You know, he does put himself out there in probably a way that he hasn't had to do in a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, we start to see a change in him with that one. After, ruining everyone's life.
Yeah. 100%. And then we finally get the reintroduction to Beatrice. She's in hospital, she's in recovery, and then she goes back to stay with her mum. This section is called Wisdom Comes Suddenly, but her wisdom is that she, through all of this, has become completely disillusioned with the world, that the positives she, in a kind of weird way, was finding in everything has been ruined for her because of this incident, and because the architect whose shirt she was fixing believed that she had stolen his watch.
Yeah.
The time frame for this section I found really confusing, because she's in hospital and they say she's lucky to be alive. And the next scene we see her, she's like walking with her mum out the hospital, and she's got the most comedic bandage on her head ever, which is massive, which is clearly just to hide her hair. Just looks so fake. And her arm in a cast, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And then she's at her mum's, and suddenly she's better. And then she's going off to see the architect. But then they're saying that she still needs time to recover. But she's already gone. I don't know. This whole section felt like it didn't really know what it wanted to do. I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah, the whole thing's confusing. They're obviously trying to allude to the fact that she must have had some serious brain injury or something, which is why her whole head is wrapped up. And yeah, they've shaved. They say that, you know, she's had to have her hair shaved, so she's got a wig now. Her mum got her a wig. Then there's a reference to, you know, all your personal effects in the box, and I'm thinking, okay, the personal effects that she was wearing with her.
Yeah.
But then the doll's head is in it. Well, that was in a flat. Like, why was that in there? She doesn't carry that with her everywhere she goes. So have they emptied out her apartment, and all she's allowed to keep is what's in the cardboard box, which wasn't very big. It's very confusing, and it jumps around. She's not well enough to work. The cleaning company won't let her go back to work. But she's apparently okay to go across town to buy this guy a new shirt, because obviously that one's ruined. Because, you know, he got run over. And then go and see the architect, hand it over, because they obviously live in completely different parts of town, because, you know, rich half, poor half.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
But apparently she's not allowed to work. And it's very confusing. I think they're trying to make some points here. Like, she made a comment previously, she loves living on her own because she can do what she wants, and she lights a candle. And she's back in her mum's place, and her mum says, oh, you can't have candles because they're a fire hazard, and blows them all out. They're trying to make some points, but it's just sort of surrounded by confusion.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Anthony Perkins in Psycho or Sissy Spacek and Carrie kind of parental abuse here, is it? No, you can't light a candle, that's it. I feel a bit sorry for the actress Clea Duvall at this point, because I think actually she was pretty strong in her opening segment, but here she's asking to do that kind of ill acting that is very much acting, because I don't think she probably knows what's supposed to be wrong with her character, much as we don't know, so she's just sort of doing the best she can, and that looks like wearing kind of a bandaged turban at one point, and then putting on a bit of a limp, or it's just a bit all over the place, this segment. And like Dory comes in and out, like she's sort of supported, but then she sort of disappears, and that's fine. That kind of makes sense. That's what people do. She used to use, as you said, Beatrice, and she can't use her anymore, so now she's no good to her. So she can't become Beatrice. That's not who she is. She's not the supportive person. So she disappears from her life.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we find out that Beatrice got laid off because there's just so many complaints against her. Surprise, surprise. You know, so obviously she's been covering for her this whole time. You know, and she's been bringing the happiness and joy to everything, and that's no longer true. So they don't have the need anymore. So can't be friends anymore. I can't deal with this because you were bringing the happiness and I can't give you that happiness. And, you know, they have a couple of conversations, and I think that's where she is able to bring her acting, as you say, like the being ill bit. Like, no one can tell you what's wrong with her. Like, you can't tell someone how to act when you can't tell someone what they're meant to be acting. You're quite right. But then she does bring it when they're having a conversation, and she's able to show that the emotions that she's feeling, and it's more about that they've beaten her down and she's given up. She's able to bring it to that bit. So she is able to sort of redeem herself in there. But yeah, there's just so much confusion.
Yeah, it's an interesting arc, isn't it? Because we have in the earlier like exposition, she talks about like that kind of near-death experience gave her this positive sense. And I guess we're meant to be seeing the inverse here, that this next near-death experience gives her the kind of a negative outlook on life.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know, something's missing. It just doesn't quite work. Like that's the obvious stuff, but we don't quite understand why. Like why it's had such a swing. I get, I guess he starts to stack things up. She nearly died again. She lost her apartment. She's lost her job. Her friend isn't who she thought she was. I get it, but in a film that's often reaching for, as you said, like metaphor or subtext text or a deeper meaning, I don't think it quite lands this one. I'm not sure what it is trying to say here. No,
I think there is something that the doll,
yes,
which came from wherever.
Yeah,
I think you said earlier, part of the whole thing is that one of the eyes is closed and it got stuck that way.
Yeah,
but then now somehow the eyes have been opened, and I think she makes a comment that her eyes have been opened because life isn't fair. Yeah. I think maybe that's what they're trying to get to, but it's just not. It's just not hitting. It's not working. There's too much gumph around it. And the most annoying line, I think, is in this bit where she's across the road and then sees her, but then walks away and says, "Oh, I didn't recognize you because your hair grew back." But she's wearing a hat.
Right. This is Dory and Beatrice, isn't it? Yeah. So
that annoyed me more than anything. So that took me out of it. Yeah. She looks exactly the same. Just swap the hat for a bandage. It's the same person.
It's true. Yeah, it's like a crocheted number, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Like a tea cozy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then we come back to Troy, to McConaughey. This is McConaughey's face and eye acting. There's some good stuff going on here. This is called I Can Never Go Back. And there was a clever thing going on here because he's still wearing the butterfly bandage. And I was like, because of the time frame of the previous segment, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Now I'm totally lost.
Yeah.
But we come to learn that this is actually part of the plot, and that he keeps self-harming. He's cutting himself in the same spot. He keeps opening up the wound as a form of kind of self-punishment. It's his way of kind of externalizing, trying to, I guess, release the guilt, which is going to pay off in the big kind of finale that we get to. But this is a bit that I read about, that McConaughey didn't like how it looked when he first did the scene.
All right.
So he said to the props master, "Go down the shops, buy me a razor," and he did that for real. That's him really cutting into his head with a real razor for this scene. Which is interesting little actory moment that I'd have been committed to the scene and wanted it to look as real as possible. He obviously felt like he was connecting with this character and this journey. And I think this is the best bit of acting probably in the movie.
Yeah.
We sit with him and we do really understand how this character is crumbling and not coping with the guilt and the weight of what he's done.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. We get more of that. The look inside his mind
Mm.
about how he's reacting to things and how he's, beating himself up and how he's trying to cope but not coping. And
yeah, they're all talking about him behind his back at the office, aren't they? And
yeah, he's not going out with them anymore. They will start calling him Saint Troy, apparently. It's revealed to him.
Oh, the irony. He has this look. He has this kind of like slack-jawed, like dead-eyed look.
Yeah.
But it just really, I don't know, to me, it really sold how this person was feeling, what he was going through. I think it was clearly a choice, but I think that choice definitely worked.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the last scene and this scene, I think this is where the characters and the actors, they are able to use that ability to show emotion to actually tell the story that we've been missing in some places. And they both do it great. I mean, Matthew McConaughey on this is, as you say, you see everything. And this is where he goes to the jail, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as you say, like you see a world within his eyes, and it's just so much emotion and everything that he's thinking. And as the guy talks about how he feels having taken a life, and everything he does, and all he does is he thinks about it, and you can see the emotion coming through, and everything that the guy is saying, he's feeling it.
Because he's still at this point believing that she died, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's not aware that she survived yet.
Yeah. He's trying to live his life as a murderer and trying to come to terms with that. And it's just not, the bits aren't connecting in his head, and you can see that in his face. Yeah, it's really good. I think this is probably, for me, this is the best one.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And then we go back to Terrence Walker next. Again, he's not been in it for quite a while. This is called The Mind is Its Own Place. And we learn that the woman he's having an affair with is going to go back to her husband. She asks him this very leading question, which she knows the answer to, where like her husband finds out about the affair and he says, I can't live without you. And she's like, well, would you say the same? And he can't answer her. And he's basically sort of walking through life. He's having an existential crisis, isn't he? He keeps coming back to his doctor, talking about feeling depressed, feeling like he can't move forwards. With this kind of subplot, the Rob McElhenney student character keeps cropping up, asking if he can resit his paper, asking at really inopportune times when either Walker's in a bad mood or when he's just found out this news that the affair is going to end, or this is kind of, again, this kind of axis of characters are about to meet at a certain point. Thoughts?
I don't think it's as good as the last scene, but I do enjoy this scene. I enjoy it for what it's telling. It's possibly not conveyed in the best way. Just the way it sort of, it jumps around. I mean, the whole film is jumping around. But it's almost like they're getting to a point where they're trying to cram in stuff.
Yeah.
Because they're running out of time. Yeah, I mean, in this thing, we get back and forth to the doctors 2 or 3 times, back and forth to the classroom 2 or 3 times, back and forth to the hallways 2 or 3 times. And it's along the way, there's a lot of poignant questions, and I think they're trying to get all these, like you say, all these messages and all these poignant phrases out as quickly as possible. But it's too much. I appreciate it for what it's doing, but it also frustrates me for how it's doing it.
Yeah, the student character, he's sort of saying, I've got a lot going on, like my life's difficult, my girlfriend's dumping me, and da-da-da-da. And I have to be honest, at this point, I again, kind of on Walker's side a little bit in terms of this interaction, thinking like, tough shit, mate, kind of get on with it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I couldn't tell whether that was the film wanting me to think that, because they've set this student character up as being a bit of a douche. So I couldn't tell if it was that or whether it was my own connection to that.
You've heard that too many times.
Yeah. But it's very much setting you up, because we come to learn that after another quite caustic kind of interaction between them, when he learns that this student wants to become a doctor, doesn't he? And he says to him, why would you want to do that? Because by keeping them alive today, you're just prolonging their misery until tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's kind of the final words they have one another. And then we find out when he's giving the papers back, which this kid's going to get a shit mark in, that he's taken his own life. He's jumped from a building at a party the night before.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that section? I'm not sure that worked for me. I don't think that payoff kind of built to a point where this big moment, this, tragic event, I don't think paid off as tragic.
No, I think if they had left it at the conversation at the door, why do you want to be a doctor? As you say, you're prolonging their misery. You're not helping them. I think if they've left it at that probably would have been more poignant.
Yeah.
I think that would have been like a little coat hanger, and you hang on those words, but then you go back into the classroom and he makes some snarky comment about, he's late again. And then someone says, and then you get just, it's just frustrating.
They almost make a joke of it immediately, and that he's got drawn on the chalkboard like this axis of like things that fall and how gravity would pull them down.
Yeah.
And that same like smart ass favorite student from the front is like, well, he didn't fall, did he? Because the trajectory is not right or something.
Yeah.
But
he didn't fall, he jumped. He must have jumped, because otherwise he would have landed in a bush.
Yeah, that's right. It's not it's not in keeping with what I think the tragic tone of what they're going for here. And that, be mindful of the things you say, because you don't know what other people are going through and how it feels to them. That's what this is going for, right?
Yeah.
But by completely underhanding it immediately, I felt that message was totally lost.
Yeah, I don't know if they were trying to make it more pointed. I don't know if this was them, again, turning the subtlety into giant screaming letters on the chalkboard. In case you didn't get it, everybody, he jumped.
And it's this guy's fault. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't need to do that. If I would have preferred it if they left it at the door. Yeah. But if they had left it at just the girl saying to her, you didn't hear there was a party and he fell off the roof, and then just hang on his face. Even that, yeah. And then just like the shock look on his face and the blood gone all, whatever, that would have worked. But like you say, it's just like, you may have just gone, wah, wah. Yeah, definitely. It's kind of one line too much. It's that like, we said it, it's that like, things are better when they're subtext. We don't need it pointed out to us. We don't. Yeah. And I think that's where this movie kind of keeps making that same mistake. That actually, it's telling the audience what the writers think you should think and feel, not inviting you to decide what you would like to think or feel about these situations or about these people or about these pivotal moments in life where you get to make the right or wrong decision. I don't know, like, it's telling rather than inviting. Yeah. They may as well have had Trinity lean over the dead body and say, you can't be dead, you're the one. Right, yeah. It's just leave the moment. Just let us. Yes, I'm very frustrated with the end of that scene. Yeah. Well, because then we're into kind of this is it now, isn't it? Now we're into the final scene. Well, not quite. This is conversation number 12, but this is called I'm Ready to Surrender. And this is the Avengers Assemble moment. This is everyone together in this final scene, kind of, but it's the culmination of what we've been watching. Troy's in hospital. They sort of goad you into thinking he's committed suicide, which is a bit cheeky.
I'm not. Again, I'm not. Maybe you can say I'm not sure how that plays. How I feel about that. Actually, he's got a blood infection from all the cutting, and then he comes to learn that Beatrice is still alive from this same kind of co-worker, because they could only afford this one extra actor, who he's left in his will and in his suicide note. Well, but it's not a suicide note, so I don't know. That this whole section is a little bit confusing. He's written a note and a will. So he learns Beatrice is alive. Should we talk about these as separate things? That's the kind of McConaughey section of this final bit. What did you think of all of that?
Disappointed with a capital D. It was, as you say, it was weird. Like, we get the over shoulder shot where we're looking at his colleague being told, and the wording something like, he left the door open, so he must have wanted people to know. Yeah. And he's in hospital and he wants to see you, and he left this letter for you. And then, like you say, it's like there's a will in there and there's bits and pieces, but it was blood poisoning. Yeah. What? So why? What? Yeah.
It doesn't all quite tie together, does it?
No. And then, he gets told that he says something like wanting, he can't do anything for the girl, maybe he can do something for the family. And he's just like, oh, you can do something for her. And it takes him sort of a minute to realise. But then it's like, that's left.
Yeah. Well, then we kind of cut immediately to Beatrice, don't we?
Yeah. But it's just so disappointing, because I thought maybe, like you say, this would be the Avengers moment, and then we would see the two of them together again at some point. But no, that's it. That's all we get.
No.
It's really disappointing.
And again, whether choices are made, I don't know. Whether it was financial, budgetary, or script changes, because then we get into Beatrice, and she sees Dory, and they reconnect, and she starts to explain to her. Dory explains to her that I couldn't be around you because of your negative energy. Good friend. But Beatrice still wants to reconnect with her, and she explains, so actually, I've turned another corner. I was out the other day and I was going to step out into traffic and kill myself, but a guy waved at me. And again, like, there was a perfect opportunity here. Like, was that Troy going to find her? Was that Wade? And he's just a happy guy, and he was on the other side of it, and he's just like, oh, I'm a happy guy. Yeah. Maybe that is the hint. I don't know. But there was moments for this kind of Magnolia moment, right? Of rain and frogs. This is what had to happen. We needed a bigger moment, in my opinion, for all of this to properly tie together than the same segmented people in rooms talking about other segmented people that we've also seen in this story. There needed to be a big moment of connection. I don't know did you feel the same?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Actually, in my notes, this is where we also get the I didn't recognize you because your hair grew moment.
Right. Yeah.
So that doubly annoyed me. But yeah, like as soon as she said about the smiling person waving, I thought, are we going to see Wade? Is this the moment? Like, no, nothing. It's, the payoff is nothing.
Well, it is, yeah. It's that I believe again.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, it's a nice moment. Like, seeing the niceness in other people is what brought her back and snapped her out of it. But it's like, you've made such a big deal about getting to that point. And I know sometimes like small acts can make a big difference, but in the way that the story has been told, that's not how the story has gone. I think that's what they've possibly been trying to do, that small things can make a big difference. But these small things have not been small things so far.
Right. Yeah.
And then to finally end on a small thing is a bit like, but you did actually get run over. And you lost your apartment and you lost your job and all this sort of stuff. But then the small thing that did it was that someone waved at you. It's a really nice thing to do. And it's nice to wave at people. If you see someone smiling at you, give them a smile, give them a wave. I mean, they may be insane, but who knows?
Good point, yeah.
But it's just, after all of that, it's just, no. It's just another disappointing.
Yeah, it really is. It is. And I think we need to see these people intersecting.
Yeah.
For it to have that ultimate payoff, I think. Because then we go to Gene, and he does see Wade, and Wade's really happy, and he's doing really successful in this job. And Gene, again, actually at this point does the right thing. He chooses not to tell him that I got you that job. He just lets Wade go off and be happy. And it turns out that, Gene's been made redundant. And now we're back at the bar where we started the movie, which kind of makes sense, actually, when you start thinking about it. The whole Gene story plays out before we get to the McConaughey story. And we know we're kind of coming full circle. And he says to him, may you get what you want and want what you get, which is this kind of phrase they've had in the office, but it's a bit of a piss take phrase. Even now, Gene is still being a bit of a dick. Because it's meant to be like kind of a curse type phrase, isn't it? They're like, don't want more than you should, don't desire more than you deserve, or whatever. It's one of these kind of phrases.
Poor thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get another wisdom, don't we? We get it from the best mate. He comes along and joins, and we get life only makes sense when you look backwards. Too bad we've got to live it forwards, which is a really nice kind of wisdom, but feels too pointed on the nose in a movie where they've played it out of sequence. It's like, haha, aren't we clever?
Yes.
But had we had like McConaughey going and seeing Beatrice, and then there just needed to be stronger links now at this point between the three main arcs, I think. Yeah. I mean, Walker doesn't even get a look in, so I don't know, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it ties together in the way that it wants to.
No. It's like Avengers Assemble, but they all came out of the different portals and ended up in completely different places.
Right, yeah.
Like, it just doesn't bring it together. I think that line, life only makes sense when you look at it backwards, would have been more poignant and would have been nicer if it had been that they all maybe bumped into each other at the bar. And they kind of didn't realise their connection. Maybe, I mean, Matthew would have been the only one that recognised her. She wouldn't have known him.
Yeah.
But the way that the story is actually told backwards and forwards from that point, it sort of takes away how poignant that moment is as well, because it's not all backwards. It's actually all over the place.
Yeah.
It's a bit sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we couldn't have had the postscript, could we? Because obviously the bit with Gene is before the Troy and the Beatrice storyline kicks off. But I know what you mean. Like, there needed to be something.
Yeah.
And the whole wave thing is going to be important for the kind of postscript scene that we're about to talk about. But yeah, if we sat through an hour and a half, so it's had ups and downs. There's been some good stuff in here. There's been some good performances. I think that some of the things it's trying to say are worth hearing.
Yeah.
But we've been building up to this, and it's all just again a bit. And
yeah,
I don't know if you felt the same.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. It's you're waiting for the payoff.
Yeah.
You're waiting for the pieces to come together. Like, you've been watching a mystery for the last hour and a half, and it's like you want to see how all these pieces connect, and it all comes together in your mind, and you're like, oh yeah, and all you come away with is actually, huh?
Yeah.
And that's weird.
I mean, think of like Pulp Fiction. Like, you could watch that movie all the way through as it exists, and then you could go all the way back and watch it in chronological order and be just as entertained.
Yeah.
And you could probably watch them back to back, which is what, like 6 hours of your life now. And you'd feel like that was time well spent.
Yeah.
But it's not true here. You wouldn't watch all of this and then go, oh, now I would like to see how it plays out in chronological order, because it still would feel fractured. It still would feel like it's not a complete cohesive narrative. And it would not feel like 3.5 hours well spent.
No, you'd still be walking away with so many questions.
Yeah.
Because things just aren't answered. Things are left hanging. and not in a poignant way, in just a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's again, I see what they're trying to do, and I appreciate you for what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But no, at this point, I'm confused.
Yeah, I'm not confused by the plot. That's not difficult to follow, but confused by kind of what the point of it all is.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
And then we truly end on 18 inches of personal space, which is when Gene is on a train. We're not sure where he's going, at what point of their timeline this is. And sitting across from him is Patricia, Walker's ex-wife, I presume. She's looking very despondent, very down. A bunch of punks walk past and knock over her briefcase. And then as Gene gets off the train to get his next train, he stops and waves at her, which gives her like a little smile, a little bright spot in her day. But again, I don't know where this, I don't know if you know, I'm not sure where this fits in the timeline.
No. Your sort of initial instinct is that it's happened after the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's on his way home. But then you realise what you've just watched, and you realise it could be absolutely anywhere.
Yeah.
Like when we first see Gene sat down and then the guy's running across, there's like a throwaway bit earlier on with like a guy selling stuff outside the metro station. And I thought it was going to be him because they had a bit of a back and forth. I thought that was going to be him and it was all going to kick off between them. But then, he just runs past, knocks over the briefcase, and then, that was it. It's a nice moment with the wave, but like you say, because of the way the whole film has gone, you don't know where to place it.
Yeah, no. I think, again, I like the concept of this is where it ends, but I don't think it works because they haven't sold the rest of the concept. I think they thought, this is smart, I like this. This will be a touching moment.
Yeah.
And it could be, but because other parts of it haven't worked, but in the build-up, it doesn't quite deliver.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a familiar thing that you and I have been talking about throughout this, really. Is that, conceptually, yes. Ambitiously, okay. In reality, meh.
Yeah. It would have almost meant... It would have been possibly better if the scene had played, the thing is knocked down, he's seen that she's distressed, broken that 18 inches of personal space, sat next to her, and they've struck up a conversation, and we actually see him smile.
Sure, yeah.
And then the subway train drives off in the shot.
Yeah.
That possibly would have been more poignant. But again, you just walk away with it more questions. Because it's a nice moment that you don't know really where to place, so you don't know what you're supposed to do with the information.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
But, okay. Thank you for this nice moment. But also, where is this nice moment?
Yeah, where is it and why is it?
Yeah, is Gene about to now walk up to the office and shout at someone?
Yeah, well, quite. Yeah.
Is she about to go and empty the apartment? I don't know. Like, do we feel sorry for both of them? Do we feel happy for them? Do we feel anything for them? And also, what's Matthew going to do now? Like, he's just like this information. I'm still trying to figure this one out.
Yeah.
It's just too many questions in too short of a time.
Yeah. Which we won't ever get answered, I'm afraid. There is no 14 conversations about two things, or it was a 13 and done.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What is the one thing? What are all these conversations about? I think that's the only place we can end, right? I think we've broken this down in loads of detail. what did you take away? What is the one thing that this movie wants you to be ruminating on after all their profundity?
I think, and I'll probably change my mind in 5 minutes because I changed my mind 5 minutes ago. I think they're talking about happiness.
Sure.
Or their relation to happiness, or lack thereof, or connection thereof, maybe. I don't know about you.
No, I think that makes total sense. The one thing could be what truly brings us happiness.
Yeah.
And then is it then the follow-on from that, it's how we interact with people or how we involve ourselves in the lives of others, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know. If I'm honest, I don't know. And this is about the amount of time I'm willing to give over to deciding it.
That's fair.
In terms of how the film was positing it, you and I could probably talk for another couple of hours after we finish talking about the film about what we think the one thing of the meaning of life is, but not what this film is trying to posit.
No. Yeah. And that's really the only thing that I can seem to connect everything to is people's relationship to happiness. And then they all find ways to be happy and then move away from being happy. And or maybe it's just people, 13 conversations about people, interactions therein. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's 13 conversations about how far someone should jump away from a building. At this point, like, you just feel like that student's going to pipe up any second and go, wow, actually.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's my best guess.
no, I think it's totally fair. And I think, happiness is the clearest reading, I think, isn't it? For sure.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. McConaughey, anything left to say?
The only thing, I'm going to sound like a broken record, and honestly, this is not anything against Matthew McConaughey, people who are listening, because I'm going to say the exact same thing I said last time. I think his acting in this was absolutely great. The facial expressions, everything you could read into him, great. But how on earth did he get top billing on this once again? In the poster, he is first. Like, in the credits, I'm pretty sure he's first. But poor old Alan Arkin gets an and.
Yeah, I mean, the and is kind of prestigious, isn't it? In terms of, like, you're the elder statesman, you're bringing that thing that other people can't to the
But
cast.
usually an and is the elder statesman who's more of a supporting role.
Yeah,
isn't it? That's how I read into it.
Yeah.
I know, like, there's all sorts of arguments that go on, like, you may not get the money you are after for a film, but your agent will argue that you deserve a featuring or a starring or something like that.
Now, isn't there? All sorts goes on now.
But for me, when you're at the end with an and, that feels like you're a big name, but you're not the main person. But we see him probably more than anyone else.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey, we don't see loads of him, really.
No.
His storyline is important, but I don't know if it's the main one. I don't know if you disagree. It impacts someone else the most.
Yeah.
But is it the main one? I don't know. I mean, he definitely doesn't have the most lines.
No, near. No.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it's when I read the synopsis and the credits, I expected to see him a lot more.
For this to be a McConaughey movie, yeah. No, I know what you're saying. I mean, I think it's simple marketing, isn't it? He's so hot right now, so let's put him front and center and use him to draw people in.
Yeah.
Because I think Alan Arkin is the kind of linchpin, isn't he? His character, Gene, is the linchpin that kind of that drives the story forwards. I think. Yeah, I don't know if there's not a main character really, is there?
No.
But he feels like the one that has the most screen time for sure, and that if there is a narrative thread, the others are kind of offshoots of that.
Yeah. Yeah, he seems to be the one that kind of holds most of the film together.
Mm-hmm.
It's his story that sets the theme as we go into it. Like, he's not in the very first bit, but he almost bookends it. And it has the massive bit in the middle. It just seems to me that it should have been Alan Arkin featuring Matthew McConaughey. It just as I say, like Matthew McConaughey,
like a pop star with a rapper that does a
exactly.
Okay.
Matthew McConaughey is great in this, like, especially considering he has so few lines.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I do walk away with it thinking his agent must be great to manage to get that, because I definitely expected him to be, from watching a trailer and reading synopsis and reading a cast list, I thought this was going to be his event and then how it affected all these other people. Because that was the way it was kind of sold.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely not that. Spoiler alert to everyone.
Well, I mean, I think 2 hours in, spoiler alert for sure. We've spoken about like all the moments of this film. If you haven't seen it before listening to this, you don't need to, really.
No.
Not just because of us. I think it's not awful by any stretch of imagination. It's fine. What it does is fine. It's not actively bad in any way. It's just reaching for something it's not quite able to achieve, I think, is how I ultimately feel about it. I don't know about you.
No, I would agree with that. It's not bad. It's not great. I mean,
no.
You could twist my arm and really say, is it good? Don't know, but it's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. It's bang average. It's trying something, and as you said, props for that. But that's about all I'd give it. Yeah. Good feels like a stretch.
Yeah.
I've certainly watched worse films already that feature McConaughey in. The previous movie, for instance, was a much worse movie, because at least this is trying to say something.
Yeah.
But on every respect, that was a better made movie. It was shallow and empty and had nothing to add. Yeah, I'm not sorry I've watched this. I think it's part of his journey. I think I can see why he would take it and be interested in doing it. But that's sort of it, really, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of sums up every part of this. It's like, okay, but...
Right, yeah. Yeah.
There's always a something. For every little bit of this, there's always something that's missing or that's leaving you with questions or that didn't quite make sense.
Yeah.
There's always that little something, and not in the good way that they were potentially hoping for.
Yeah.
Like, it's trying to do so many things, and it's trying to take influence from different ideas of cinema and how you can do all these things without really doing anything but make it really deep and interesting, and but it doesn't quite reach what it's wanting to.
No.
I mean, maybe it has, like, I've referenced like 5 or 6 different films. Maybe it has done something to cinema and the people who have seen it, and the ideas that it's taken from have gone elsewhere, but not in one piece. But I don't think that's because of this film.
No, I don't. You're right. The things we've touched upon have been the comparisons we've made, or the influences we could see upon this movie, and that they have gone on to be recognised. I think.
Yeah.
Nobody is looking back and recognising this movie. I mean, I'd never heard of it before looking into his filmography, and I think that's sort of where it lives, and it probably has, as we said, like a few really passionate vocal supporters. It's probably within that cult. They really appreciate what it's doing, but I think there's not many of them out there.
No, I don't think like you're going to see a podcast anytime soon where they break this film apart minute by minute, or every 5 minutes or whatever, because it's just, some films are telling you a lot all the time. This film is trying to do a lot of things to tell you not a lot.
Yes, that's a really nice way to put it. Yeah, we're not going to get the 25-year cast reunion next year or anything, are we?
No, I don't think so.
No.
But maybe. I'd like to see it, because I'd like to see if they can make sense of any of it for me. No. But yeah, like you say, I appreciate what they're trying to do, and I appreciate the techniques they're bringing in. And I'm glad they made it, and I'm glad I watched it.
Yeah.
But I probably won't watch it again.
No, me neither. No, I think that's fair. Other views are available. Should we check out a couple of letterbox?
Yeah, see if they know something we don't.
Carrie Krishiak says, pretty cool film. Matthew Slade, obviously. Watch for philosophy. That's it.
Okay.
I don't think she watched it for philosophy, really. I think she watched it hoping Matthew McConaughey took his shirt off.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, she doesn't, everybody. Sorry.
Yeah, sad.
Laura says, boring and 90% miserable. I ended up skipping around to watch mostly the McConaughey parts. I do miss New York, though. Yeah,
I'll give you that one.
I mean, there are a few like kind of highly rated reviews. There's a couple of 4.5s and a 5, and it feels like they're people who perhaps are very drawn to this style of movie making. They want these kind of hyperlinked, ponderous, pseudo-philosophical. That's me putting the word pseudo in there. For them, they just say philosophical. I guess human character stories.
Yeah.
I mean, just quickly scrolling through Scarlet Grace, this is what Crash wishes it was. I mean, I like the sentiment there. I alluded to Crash earlier, the Paul Haggis movie. So, yeah, I think it has its supporters. We said we sort of thought it would because it's that kind of movie. But I think by and large, culturally, I think most people seem to think this sort of just misses the mark, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't imagine it has many 1-star reviews, because people who would give a 1-star review to this probably aren't going to watch it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I understand that it is definitely going for a certain audience. The fact that they really, really wanted it to be R-rated for no reason at all seems to say what their intent was. Yeah. It's all right.
It's all right. It is all right. I agree. But we don't have all right as a category, I'm afraid. So before we wrap up, for McConaughey enthusiasts, is it on their list as a classic? They're going to watch it? Are they going to catch it if it's on TV later one night, or are they just going to avoid it altogether?
I think it's worth watching.
Yeah? Okay.
I'm not going to say it's a completionist only one.
Yeah.
I think for the McConaughey people, it's not a must. But if it's there, watch it.
Fair.
I can't remember what your exact wordings are for your category, so I've made
No, worth catching. You're absolutely right. So, yeah, there's enough. What he does, there's enough quality to kind of see. I think it's quite an interesting movie in terms of his arc. In that, to begin with, he's the, like we said, like kind of confident, cocksure, charismatic. You can see how he would win a case on the stand.
Yeah.
Character. And then he becomes this kind of haunted-eyed, deep, soulful, contemplative, and it's kind of his career in microcosm in this movie, in that he's about to hit that kind of like, razzle-dazzle, rat-a-tat, charismatic phase. But then later on, he's going to start leaning upon the well of like knowing actually how much is going on underneath the surface. He's about to be all surface, and then he's going to flip and become all substance. So it's quite interesting in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, and you do see a lot of his range in this film.
Yeah.
You can't spend this much time with an actor with them saying this few words without learning something about them. And you learn good things in this case. Whereas a lot of other actors, you will walk away saying, oh, he really actually can't do a lot, can he? But that is not the case here. He does a very good job. His facial range, his emotive range, his everything. With the few lines he's got, as you say, you can get every single type of emotion out of him from one end of the spectrum to the other. It's very positive on him. He comes away with it looking very good. Yeah, just a shame that the film as a whole didn't quite match that.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you so much for your time, mate. I mean, what we thought might be a short one has sounded an epic, but yeah.
Oops.
We don't need a minute-by-minute breakdown in this movie, but we've broken it down in lots of depth and detail, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. No, it's been very enjoyable. Thank you very much. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I watched it. I'd love to see a film that does it, but pulls it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If there was a remake of this year, no pressure anyone listening, make it happen. But it could be something spectacular. Just don't keep frustrating me along the way.
Yeah. And show us, please. Don't tell us.
Yes, please. If you break out the chalkboard one more time, there's going to be trouble.
Irreversible. Well, after a conversation like that, I'm sure feeling like a happy man, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I did recording it. So to wrap up, thanks once again to everyone that's listening and partaken in this journey with me through the reconnaissance. That was 13 conversations about one thing. Next up in a fortnight, I'm going to be joined by Max Byrne for his second appearance this season to discuss Eminem's performance as Adam Meeks in Bill Paxton's Frailty, for those that are watching along. Until next time, be excellent to each other and make sure you take the time to treat yourself too. I am Jack signing off. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers!
You just gotta keep living, man. Livin.
Cut.